End of the day, my take is that there's certain things that are zero sum. It's in my interest and your interest for both of us to be very clear and upfront that this aspect is something that like there is a loser and there's a winner. And I think we're too afraid in today's society sometimes to say that. Yeah, I mean, I think you don't make better choices. You're more aware of how bad your choices are.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of Gentle Power.
We're at almost episode 52. I'm so excited. We started this podcast almost a year ago.
And so for about a year, we are planning who should we have here on our podcast for the 1 year anniversary. And we could only think of this one man, Sam Liu.
I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah. But anyway, we are very excited to welcome Sam Liu to our podcast. And Sam, we'll have you give a bit of an intro.
Okay.
But for those who have been watching our recent episodes, you've probably seen a theme of us bringing on a lot of AI founders.
Yes.
Something, people may have heard about this thing called AI. Seems like there's something going on there.
We're in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Can't have it any other way.
Yeah, but Sam, would love to hear a bit about your background, what you're working on, and would love to get into. So our podcast, we love to talk about negotiations and power, but we also tend to go on a lot of side quests. So we'll just see where this conversation takes us.
So Sam, we never do our guest bio because they've always done so much. So Please feel free to humble brag as much as you want.
Okay, yeah, sure. I can give a quick intro. Thank you for having me. So as mentioned, I'm also an AI founder. So I started a company called Fergana Labs. And what we do is we make AI PowerPoint tools. And so, I used to be a management consultant and spent too many late nights, 2 a.m.s, moving boxes around on slides, wondering why the hell I was doing this. So, we're on a mission to change that and really unlock a lot of the bureaucratic grunt work from the hands of, young analysts and putting them into the hands of AI so we can focus on important things. But yeah, before that, I dropped out of my PhD at Stanford, where I was researching decision making.
Yes.
And,
badge of honor, being a Stanford dropout, PhD dropout.
I mean, that's how you have to do it these days. My parents obviously not very happy, but sometimes you need to make your own choices. So I was doing that. And then my background actually is in physics and philosophy, right? So for me, it's always been a life of how do I solve really interesting technical problems? But then also, how do you add the humanistic side and really understand the world deeply from different perspectives?
I also worked for an ex-McKinsey EM, engagement manager, back early in my career at a pharmaceutical company, Sanofi. And her manager was an ex-McKinsey partner. I was saying this to you earlier.
Yeah.
And the level of detail I had to think about with PowerPoint presentations, or I was writing a protocol of some studies for the pharmaceutical company to test out some digital biomarker trackers and all that. And the level of detail on just surface level stuff, it was very hard for me. So I'm glad that you're working on something that, like we were saying before we started, that why have smart people work on, aligning the text or font or
100%.
superficial things? But I do wonder, can we connect this to your decision-making maybe background, where even superficial things, they might affect you, right? So one of the studies, I would love to go into what you learn in decision-making and how you're applying it to your company and all that, because I love behavioral sciences and I love the studies I learned there, and things like, if you say because, then you're more likely to, when you're asking someone for a favor and you use the word because, you're more likely, that person's much more likely to do you the favor and things like that. So how are you applying what you learned in your decision-making PhD to your current company, or how that motivated you? Anything?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yay.
And I think the short answer is not much.
No.
Just YOLO'd it.
YOLO it.
In product, are you the product side of the business?
I think we're both technical, so we both do a mix. But I guess let me explain sort of what I mean by that. Is my PhD is very much sort of applied econ. So think game theory, a bit of behavioral economics, very rational way of thinking about how we make choices. But I think as I've learned, making a lot of choices as a startup founder, most of the choices we make are not rational at all.
Right.
And there's a lot of neuroscience behind this as well, is that we make better choices when we tap into our feelings, our body, and how we process emotions. And so I think if you talk to any startup founder, and I'm sure maybe people have talked about in the past, everyone becomes spiritual. They start going to church more. They meditate or whatever.
They need to do an ayahuasca retreat at some point.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's our part of the process, right? Is that so much of the pressure and the choices and uncertainty is less about how do I rationally make the choice, but how do I come to terms with the fact that I am making that choice.
Wow. Yeah, I have a friend who's extremely nerdy about these things. And when he told me about post-rationalism, as a math major, I was like, wow, I cannot live in a post-rational world. So the book Thinking Fast and Slow, so you like the thinking fast part? You're an advocate of thinking fast?
I mean, okay, so I have a lot to say about, Kahneman and that, maybe a different time.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely thinking fast, I think, is an important part to train.
Interesting.
So when you were deciding to drop out of your PhD,
did you think fast?
You're like 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, let's
Stay or go.
Right.
But so what was the decision-making process there? I mean, was it you feeling how you felt about if you were going to stay in it over a long period of time? Like you're going through that feeling process for several months or like a year or something? Or like, how did you arrive at that decision?
Yeah, I think honestly, I should have dropped out sooner. Right? I think the way I was thinking about it was very much like rational, right? Like I'm a bit of an overthinker. I'm like, oh, cool. What are the things I care about? How do I think about my career? What do I need to do? Right? But all those things didn't make me choose to drop out. Right? I'd known these probably since like year 1 or 2. Like if you talk to my PhD friends, I think they had a betting pool, prediction markets, as they say now.
They had a Kaushi on you.
Yeah, they had there's a Kaushi contract of like when I drop out.
When is Sam dropping out?
Did you make the bet on that?
Oh, I wish.
Prop bet?
Well, the problem is no one would take the other side.
Yeah, that's true.
Your parents.
That is true. Should have gotten them in on it.
Wait, actually, just quick tangent. I would love a Kaushi on my friends. Like, I don't know if that's a thing yet.
Oh.
But I would love to bet on what my friends will do or not do. I don't care too much about, I don't know, betting on politics or sports, but my friends.
Yeah. That's where it gets personal,
Yeah.
you know?
It's like in How I Met Your Mother episode where they're betting on like the other people's relationships.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Well, now we have a product for that.
New startup idea in case.
Yeah.
Write that down. So your question was, what made you decide to drop out?
Yeah.
You said you already knew to some extent, but then what made it like a done deal?
Yeah, I think it was this process of, seeing all my friends who had left companies, left PhDs to do a startup, and looking at that journey that they'd gone under, right? And realizing how much more I identified with them than I did with my PhD life. And what I like to say is like a PhD is very interesting. I love the research, but it's a very lonely endeavor. You're like at your desk wondering, why is nothing working? There's like no one to turn to, right? And I miss that feeling of having a tribe, right? Having a team of people that really strive towards a topic. And so I like to describe this as it's like a snow day. Do you guys ever have like snow days growing up?
Well, we lived in Boston for a long time. I was in Boston for 11 years.
Yeah. Oh, so snow days from work when in Boston, but I lived in Chicago in elementary school, and we did have snow days because winters would sometimes get pretty rough.
Like, okay, I'm not gonna do any homework.
Yeah.
Hopefully tomorrow, the snow plows are gonna be there.
Yeah.
And then when it snows, right, the rest of the world doesn't matter. It's just you and your team or your friends in this case, right?
Yeah.
Playing and venturing.
Yeah, it was the best. Yeah.
And that's what kind of a startup feels like.
Oh, cool. So that's what you were craving, and you kind of knew for a while. And
Wow, I've never heard that comparison.
when you were sharing that, so before Garrett and I started this negotiations company, yournegotiations.com, got to plug it on our own podcast. It's free advertising.
Always be closing.
Yeah, always be closing. Before we started this company, I was working at a startup as well. I left that startup and I was trying to think about like what I really wanted to do. And I felt a lot of pressure also because I was surrounded by just a lot of peers who I went to business school, and the whole point of business school is to get into like high paying jobs and you just continue to promote and all these things. I'm like, should I stay on that path or just go do the things that actually feel right? Like as you were talking about feeling. And one really useful thought experiment for me, because I started thinking about why I felt this pressure. And I think, and a lot of people who are listening to this podcast probably feel this, is you feel a lot of societal pressure or maybe family pressure or like communal pressure that you need to follow a certain path because that's the way it's been defined as how you succeed. So you get a high paying job, you promote and you get a fancy title and you make a lot of money, all these things. And so the thought experiment I asked myself is, assuming that everybody, whatever choice I make, everyone will already fully support me. Like my parents will be fully behind me. All my friends will be rooting for me. Let's say that's already a given. Then what would I choose to do? And that really freed up my thought process, where I felt a lot more like, okay, it's okay to be bold for us to go after this company and build this company together. The other thing that it unlocked too is I always had this interest in learning how to DJ, and I love music, and I started DJing too. And it was such a useful tool that helped guide how I should be spending my time. And so it sounds like you kind of went through a similar process, like you were sort of feeling into, okay, well, I feel very isolated. What's actually important to me, being part of a tribe that's, we're working together to go on a mission or something. Would love to hear a bit more, like if there are any useful thought processes or thought experiments or tools that you use to arrive at your decision.
Yeah. There's actually almost like a mirror foil to what you just described that I think both me and my co-founder have a mentor that swears by. And basically it's that when he was thinking about, quitting his job to do his startup.
Your mentor.
Our mentor, yeah. He was saying, look, if I fail, what's the real risk here? And the answer for him, luckily, right, is that there's no real material risk. Like his family would be okay. And so I like to describe this as it's like a snow day, right? Wouldn't be homeless, like not obviously a position of privilege, but incredible safety. And so, yeah, maybe you make less money than your friends. You're like less nice vacations, smaller car, smaller house. But that's not a real risk. It's not material to your life. And you're saying that the moment he realized that, the moment he realized there's only social risk, it's the moment he quit. And I think that stuck with me, right? It's this idea that almost the opposite of what you're saying is like, instead of all the support that you can ever have, if it's the only risk we ever take is only social, how much more free am I to do the things I really want to do?
Yeah.
Very cool. So I don't talk about this much, but I actually had a decision-making app a long time ago. Yeah, I called it Delphi, after the Greek oracle in mythology that helps you make decisions or something like that. And my app this was so long ago. It was something. It asked you what decision you're trying to make, and then it asked you things. It asked you things like, how do you think you'll feel? For example, at the time we were considering, do we move to New York or SF? And it was like, how will you feel about this in 6 months, 6 years? I think it's 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, and things like that. And whatever the studies show and all these questions around decisions. So did you sit down and you're like, this is what I learned in decision-making classes at my PhD. How will I feel in 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, things like that, or 10, 10, 10, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, honestly,
like,
I wish I had something like that.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you had an aha moment or it was just accumulating until it made sense to me.
I guess the way I describe this, there's a phrase from some literature book or like movie that's like, things change slowly and then all at once. And I view decisions like that as well, is, when you see someone make a big choice, like maybe dropping out, breaking up with a partner, or whatever it is, like it feels very sudden to the outside perspective. But for them, it's been building up over a long period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was like, at one point I just knew. Right? It wasn't like I wrote things down. I had like a 2x2 matrix. I don't think that's the way people make choices, and maybe not how they should make choices.
Yeah. So you're a startup. How long have you been working on it? And I would love to eventually get to like what kind of negotiations have you faced as you have been building this, whether it's with investors or even your co-founder, or when you are bringing on your first employees or any vendors or things like that.
Yeah, we've been working on it for about 6 months.
Okay.
So still pretty new, right? I think we're really excited about the space, and it's been a journey.
Yeah, very cool. Where and how and Where have you faced negotiations?
Where, what, how, why?
Go. Yeah. Negotiations.
Let's talk about negotiations, but we can also just talk about power. The name of the podcast is Gentle Power. So where have you faced any negotiations or power dynamics? Can you give us a specific example? And I know you've worked in consulting, so I feel like consulting has a lot of negotiations and power dynamics. So if you can give us a specific example of a negotiation you faced in your life.
Yeah. I mean, the most one that comes to mind, honestly, it's nothing related to work.
Okay.
I just came back from Asia for a wedding. I was in Thailand for a good friend's wedding. And everywhere you go with the tuk-tuk drivers, you have to negotiate the price.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like so in the US, you just call an Uber, call a cab.
Right.
Yeah.
But there, it's like, they're like,
Everything is negotiable.
everything's negotiable,
Yeah.
right? And it's this crazy thing where like, you're not used to every price that you see being a negotiable thing. But
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah.
And so how did you take that on?
Yeah.
Did you use any of your decision making?
Well,
I'm dying
so
for
here's a technique I use in these countries.
Okay.
And it's more from computer science. You know the concept of binary search, I'm assuming.
Can you
Nothing
define it
else
or
goes in
describe
value
it?
way.
Okay, but here's a way that you do it. Basically, like, here's a problem at these places. You don't know what the fair price of this thing is. But what you do know is you do know whether they walk away or whether you walk away. And so let's say I'm trying to buy a souvenir, like a gift for my nephew at the market. And the vendor's like, $100. I'm like, that's too expensive.
Yeah.
Right. And I say 50. At that point, they will either decide to stay with you, right? And they're like, okay, like, let's negotiate. Like, okay, but like 75. You know that 50 is actually too high. So you go to the next one, and this assumes there are multiple people saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Next thing, you're like, all right, they said 100. You're like, all right, 25.
You can say it to the same person, actually.
Well, yeah, or you can do the same person.
Yeah.
That's a tip I should learn. But I'll just try that next time. But yeah, and then like, they sort of like know and they get angry and like, it's not worth my
So
time.
now you know it's between 25 and 50.
And then you just keep going.
Yeah.
And so usually within like 2 or 3 times, you get to the real price of what it's worth it to them. And that information makes you so much more powerful in like setting what you actually want to buy.
Okay, I like
So
that.
it's like you're testing the market to see where the real price point is.
Exactly.
Depending on the signals that you get back from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We cannot apply this to job offers because different companies have different priorities. They have different candidates.
Yeah.
They have different budgets. So yeah, a product manager in like, I don't know, at OpenAI or Google makes very different from, But I guess you assume all else
Yeah, this is
equal.
like a purely like one-dimensional,
Yes.
like one-off optimization, right, in your negotiation.
Yeah. You know what I do when I'm traveling and I want to negotiate and get a souvenir? I would get my friend who's actually a local and be like, yo, dude, can you go ask them how much this thing is?
Yeah.
Because then there's like the locals price and then there's the tourist price, right?
Yeah.
But I also don't know how applicable that is to salary negotiations. You can't be like, hey, friend, can you...
You can have yournegotiations.com.
That's true. Yes, exactly. Do I even know my company?
to help you negotiate.
Yeah.
Alex tends to delegate his negotiations to me.
Yeah.
But do you guys find those like benchmarks helpful in general?
Not at all.
Actually, no, it's not helpful for salary and compensation negotiations. And we just published a newsletter about this, but do you want to
Today.
explain?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that even for those people, just to bring it back to your example, even if you think it's one-dimensional, one of their kids might be their birthday, and so this guy needs more cash that day. Like, who knows? There's always hidden variables. So you can just logically, off of first principles, you can never truly know how valuable something is to them. So thinking about, most of our work is in job offer negotiations. Thinking about that, you can never truly know how desperate a company is to hire for this role. Maybe someone's about to quit. Maybe someone very key already quit. Maybe they have some press release that they need a lot of attention. They need to fill this role. Maybe their investors are getting impatient. Who knows? There could be a million things that are happening inside the company or the team or the hiring manager. And that makes them want to pay a lot more than what the market pays. I also used to work at salary.com, and I was on the, I guess, other side where I was advising companies how to pay their employees, based on company reported data that was cleaned up, StatSig, all of that. And even with that perfect data that we had, weighted by location, company size, what else is there? Industry and other variables. At the end of the day, I want to say most teams, but many, many teams would be like, I see how much I should pay, I don't know, an accountant. I actually want to pay this much. Like completely ignore the market data. And then people don't realize market data, not only all the variables I said, but there's also like, does a company pay at 50th percentile or, 75th or 85th, 90th. There's so much that goes into it. There's no one perfect number. Like people come to us and they're like, I'm sure you guys have been in business for a while and you must have good data. Tell me the data. I'm here for the data. And we're like, actually, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Wow. I definitely agree. The example I like to give is for negotiating of like equity and as well as, when you're like raising funding.
Yeah.
Before we raised our first round of fundraising, I had like called every single founder friend I knew to be like, hey, like, what's your advice? How do you think about it?
Yeah.
And I called, I think like 10, 15 people and they all told me something different.
Oh.
Right. And I think what I learned was that everyone's personality dictated what terms they're willing to accept. Right. To your point.
Yeah.
And so, friends who cared a lot about, just having a larger share of the pie, right? They really wanted to cling on to that equity and ownership of the company, or told me very different advice and different things than friends who care a lot about working with, the highest status person, right, they could find in the valley versus people who cared a lot about, like, I don't really care about this fundraising thing. I just want to go back to building. Like, this is a distraction.
Right. So, and like finish it quick, wrap it up.
Exactly.
Quickly.
And
Or
so
like
all
get the
cared about
best
different
investor,
things.
like A16Z or something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So interesting. And then what was your takeaway? You're like, I'm just going to do it my own way.
Yeah, exactly. My takeaway was like, all right, none of this advice is useful. I'm just going to like YOLO it and see what
That's hilarious. Okay. So how about, do you have any hot takes in negotiations?
Ooh, okay. I mean, I think hot takes are depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Like, given the name of the podcast is Gentle Power, my hot take is I feel like most people I talk to need to be more hardlined,
Like more aggressive?
more aggressive. They need to like
In the
stick to their
offensive or
guns more.
defensive?
Both ways. Right. And so I think there's like, I mean, I've taken like, negotiation classes at the law school and like business schools before. And a lot of it like emphasizes this sort of integrative approach, right? Like discovery, understanding, all very important. But end of the day, my take is that there's certain things in a startup, it's equity, that are zero sum. And in those cases, you just have to like be straight up, be aggressive, and just like hold that tension and hold your ground.
Are you scared now that people, like your future employees, will watch this and will strong arm you into, Sam, I want 10% of your company?
I mean, look, if that's what they think they can get, right? And that's what's fair, we can talk about it. But I think that's the thing, right? I view this as it's in my interest and your interest for both of us to be very clear and upfront that this aspect, maybe there are lots of things we can collaborate on, but this aspect is something that like there is a loser and there's a winner. And I think we're too afraid in today's society sometimes to say that and to call that out.
I wonder if there, like on that equity piece though, if there are alternative creative ways to still arrive at something. So let's say like it's very important for me to get 10% of the company and on the 10% example. And if the founder, so let's say I'm a first early employee, or founding employee, it's very important for me to get 10% of the company. You say, that's a hard line. We can't give 10%. But what if they... what if you arrive at, what if I have a much longer vesting schedule that ultimately builds to 10%, but instead of but it builds over 8 years. So if I stay at your startup for 8 years, then I do get that 10%. That shows much longer commitments than maybe other employees. Like, are there, I feel like there still could be creative solutions that you can arrive at, even when you have a non-negotiable, right?
Yeah, 100%. Right. I think definitely like there always are creative solutions. But that doesn't detract from the fact that there is something that is inherently a win-lose in these setups.
I feel like the trick, I see what you're saying. What I find, I'm trying to wrap my head around it because the tricky thing is that what is fair? Because the market dynamics are constantly shifting. So I'm trying to think about, like equity or salary. What is truly fair? Or do you mean like what you truly want?
Yeah, I guess like this is where my view negotiations may be a little bit different, right? Where this is why I asked the question.
I love when people disagree.
This is where I asked the question about like, benchmarks earlier, right? Which is there's a way in which I see a lot of my friends negotiate, which is what is a benchmark? What is the objective fair value price
Yeah.
of what is like what I am having to offer? But that's not how negotiations work in my mind. And that's also not how, like, if you're a founder, especially, how you should be thinking about the world. It's not what can I get for my money, but more how can I conform the world to my vision, right? And so that way you're not predicting what is the right answer. You're making your version that's internal true externally.
Okay.
And so the more you can hold that conviction and hold that tension, even if other people are upset at you, maybe they like push back, but the more you hold that ground and say, no, this is the claim that I am staking, you won't get everything you want, obviously. The more you will get what you want. Okay, here's a very practical example.
Yeah.
Right? An example of like the taxi driver, right? You know, in Thailand. I have friends who I've traveled with, and I ask them to negotiate a taxi driver price, and they come back with like a number that I'm like, how did you push the price up? Like, how did that happen?
It's like I want to pay you more. Like it was too high. Like they paid way too much.
They weren't able to like hold that tension of like pushing back, because when you say a number, when they say $100, when you say 50, they're gonna be like, no, I can't do that. Like I'm, you know,
Yeah.
But like that's the point where it's not. This is why I talk about an emotional game, right? It's not a rational game. It's can you hold that tension? And maybe they'll walk away, and they are free to walk away from that offer.
Yeah.
But can you hold that yourself, knowing other people?
Yeah.
You get stranded for a week in Thailand.
And then you're walking. No, but I do see a thread like overlap in the way we see negotiations and what you're saying, Sam, in that a lot of people who come to us to explore working, like getting our help to negotiate, they think that what they should be getting is what the market is paying, right? But what we help them see is you shouldn't use what the average market pay is as your target or your own benchmark, because you don't know how high the budget is for that role, how much more a company is willing to pay. We have been surprised multiple times with clients where this one past client comes to mind, and she had gotten laid off from a company. She was very nervous about finding a job. She had a baby coming in the near future, and she's like, "I just want to." And the market was underpaying. It was like really bad. And she said, "I just want my next job. I just want to get paid the same amount I was being paid before." And this client was had an offer. And it was just maybe 10K short. And she was like, I just want to ask for 10K. But we helped her negotiate in a way and help her see it's like, don't shoot for 10K because that's your own goal and you think that that's what the market should be paying. And at the end, they came up like on that aspect,
like around 30, 40K.
30, 40K.
Yeah.
And it even like surprised us. We're like, wow, like there was so much more in this budget. And so I think what you were saying is, people might have assumptions about how much they think is possible, but then I think it's because you're looking externally for signals on what that number should be. But then they should not have assumptions about what they like internally, what they can actually get.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like the best setting I can sort of fully embrace what you're saying is like relationships. I don't know if you had that in mind, but it's like a lot of people will not only compromise on what's important to them, which I've seen a lot with some friends, not happy about it, but also not share what they want. And so I like what you're saying, like, let's be transparent, put it on the table, what you want, especially in relationships. Because like a job is different. It's like, well, you want to keep leverage and, you know, like you don't want to show your hand, that you can do the job for less and all that. Yeah. But in relationships, it's such one of the most important things in your life, and like vulnerability. I think one of the biggest differences between professional negotiations and like relationship negotiations, quote unquote, is being vulnerable in relationships is not a weakness, but rather a marker of strength. And it helps your negotiations being vulnerable in love. And so I can totally see how, put your cards on the table and also do not compromise on what really matters to you.
Yeah. 100%.
Did you have that in mind? Okay, do you want to expand a little bit?
Not quite, but I'll take it.
Yeah, can you say more?
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting about relationships, now you mention it, is that the narrative matters in a lot of ways, right? More than in a job, right, or anything else, because the path that you and your partner build together and how you both view your story of the relationship And sometimes it matters more than objective like facts of like what is happening.
Because it's how you feel about the relationship. It's
Exactly.
not what is the actual truth about it.
Well, how you feel is the truth in some sense.
How did you get to that insight? Or what's an example?
If you
'Cause
ask my
I'm-
previous partners, they would
Yeah.
happily tell you these stories.
So what's an example of like, like the narrative matters?
Okay, I guess like bring it back to like startups, I think a lot of times ways having a co-founder and having a journey is very similar type of like intensity and also joint commitment. And so a good example is me and my co-founder when we first started this company, we talked a lot about like, how do we think about fundraising and how do we think about, okay, like what happens when things go wrong, right? When inevitably they will. Our joint answer together is like, look, it's all about staying alive until like these conditions are met, right? Until we hit something that we think we have that's really valuable. And so when the narrative is it's staying alive, that's what should be happening. Even when things are like not working, there's traction that's like not there. You're like, no, this is expected. This is like normal.
I love that. It's almost like I had a friend, very religious in Boston when I lived there. And she said something that I've carried with me to this day. This was like over 10 years ago. And she said, in her like religious words, it was something like, of course, as friends, we're gonna sin against each other over time. That's just part of our nature, but that's part of the journey, and we're just gonna forgive and work with it. And maybe in less religious terms, it's like, of course, we're gonna make mistakes. And of course, we're going to fight or something like that. Like, of course, we're going to have disagreements, but that's part of the journey. And so when you fight, you're like, oh shit, like we're going to break up. Or it could be like, oh yeah, this is like, we were going to fight. And Alex and I have been together for 14 years. We should fight more. We've been told to fight more. But when we do fight, it's not like, oh no, this is going to end us. But it's like, oh, it's part of the journey.
My takeaway from that too is, and it was the way that I think about it is slight reframing is, she said, or the way that I remember she said is like, because we're going to be friends for a long time,
yes.
of course there will be moments when we hurt each other. And so that's a given.
It's inherent.
And so like that doesn't need, when that happens, that doesn't need to mean the end of the friendship. It's just like we should both be clear-eyed about like, because we're going to be lifelong friends, like it's going to happen. Yeah. So it sounds like that was a very similar
Is that what
conversation that you had with your startup.
100%.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I guess it's also hard though, right? Like, how do you find that safety even when there is tension, there's conflict?
Yeah.
Whether it's in partnerships, in romance, but also in negotiation as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I guess the question I have is, when you work with your clients,
Who's interviewing whom here?
it's a two-way
Yeah.
No, but like when you talk to your clients, right? You mentioned this idea of like, all right, helping them understand the assumptions they're making may not be factual. Do you find that usually having information and having done the research and the homework allows them to make that leap? Or does it still take a bit of pushing for them to be like, hey, like I can stand up for like what I want?
That's a good question. So you're saying, does a benchmark or does something more rooted in, I guess, agreed upon value?
Or like you've done the homework with them, right?
Yeah.
You look at the BATNA, you look at theirs, you like figure out the zone of agreement, that whatever.
We don't go
Zopa.
into that. Yeah, Zopa. We don't.
You look at my point though, right? It's like you guys help them do the homework of like, and they do the exploration, they ask the questions, and they understand, hey, maybe I can push for this and I'll probably get it if I ask. Are people then like, let's do it? Or is it harder?
Yeah, I think what is happening along those lines is the list of priorities. So first thing we do with our new clients, immediately go into their list of priorities, and we have a list that we already give them. It's like, what do you care most about, and what are your non-negotiables? And so rank them in order of most important and mark the non-negotiables. And so very often they'll be like, I don't know, base compensation, this and that, and title, and then a few other things, PTO, start date, whatever. And then I'm like, why is title at the top for you? Is it because of like I don't know, your career progression? Is it because like salary, you think it's one-on-one with salary? And so I try to extrapolate exactly why title is important for them. And it will be different reasons for different people. Very often they think it's because it goes hand in hand with compensation, which is actually not true in this market. We have a lot of clients that have moved from one company to a very similar company, gone down one level, but made more money than their last company.
Interesting.
After negotiations, of course. And so that level of clarity, actually it turns out, and if I say something like title is actually not one-to-one with comp. So if it's not an ego thing or whatever, career progression or ownership, whatever, they're like, oh yeah, I cared about it because I thought it was connected to comp. I'm like, it's not. And like, okay, I drop it. And so like, okay, let's focus on, I do care about comp. So we focus on comp. So that conviction helps them, like really clarifying their list of priorities.
Like unwinding some of those hidden assumptions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
And when we do that too, it's a lot of people, whether our clients or not, they tend to resist to doing this this exercise and spending time with these priorities. But whenever we do this, two things always happen. They always end up discovering something new about their priorities, that what maybe certain priorities are actually subsets of others. So then when we get to the actual negotiations, they don't have to waste an ask on asking for this when they can ask for a higher, like more important umbrella thing that actually captures that. So like all these little things will happen when people go through their priorities. They always end up discovering something new. They're like, oh, I guess actually this was way more important, or this is just can be solved by this other thing. Yeah.
I want to go back to the name of your company because it's kind of related to power. Can you explain what the name is and how you came to it?
Yeah, so the name is Fergana Labs.
Okay.
Fergana Labs.
At first, I thought it was like some Italian fancy brand.
It sounds like a
Fergana.
perfume,
Yeah,
but in like a very luxury. So Fergama.
NA.
NA. Okay, Fergana
Fergana.
Labs.
Yeah, so it's basically this region in Central Asia in Kyrgyzstan called Fergana Valley. And it is where East meets West. It is the farthest east, Alexander the Great. And he's like...
Who used to be Albanian or who was Albanian. Yeah.
I thought it's Macedonian.
Well, Macedonia and Albania were one.
Okay. we can all claim
There are
credit
like
here.
3 or 4 countries that claim him, but he is Albanian because my wife is Albanian and I'm Team
Okay.
Albania. Let's go.
All right.
Alexander the Great.
And I was
the
actually
Great.
named after Alexander the Great. Yeah, no pressure.
You're good already.
It's the Great Albanian Girl.
Yeah. So it's the furthest east he went.
Ever conquered, right? And then it's the farthest west any Chinese empire, right? So the Han Dynasty conquered, and there's a crazy story for why. But it is this area that began the Silk Road, and it's a very beautiful place if you've never been.
Have you been?
I have, yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
I spent a while like backpacking there. So very beautiful. It's East meets West. I'm Chinese American.
What made you go there?
I was there for work at some point,
Okay.
and then I was like, "This is an incredible place. I have to go back." I had friends.
Yeah.
And so we just like went around, did a road trip.
Fergana.
Cool.
Okay.
Fergana Valley.
And
Okay.
then what's the reason is the farthest west someone has?
Yeah, so in China, basically, European horses were just like faster or better suited for war than the Chinese horses at the time. And so you could find a lot of these European horses in this area because they heard about it through like whispers. And so I think China at times sent like 100,000 men, which for an ancient civilization is like impressive, right?
Yeah.
Marched across the like desert steppe into this region to like get the horses.
Just to get horses.
Oh, wow.
And they did.
So, wait, so the horses that were in Fergana Valley were European horses?
Yeah.
And then the Chinese
That's why
Empire,
they went there, to
Yeah,
get
they went there to get the European horses that are more suited for war.
And because of Alexander the Great, there were European horses. And more importantly, it was actually ancient Greek civilization there.
What?
Like Rectobactria. It was not like, it was European in the Greek sense.
Yeah.
Like in Central Asia, which is a crazy sort of...
Whoa.
That is crazy. Yeah. I mean, Macedonia and Greece were all right there, and Albania is in between.
So Fergana Labs. So is it like the idea behind it is you are taking what's the idea?
Okay, so honestly, the reason behind the name is due to some like tax not tax reasons, but like we had to fill out some like tax forms, and I needed like a name that hadn't been claimed by someone else. And I was like, there's no way anyone else in America has this name as a company.
Yeah.
Was there?
No, so that's why.
Oh,
right?
nice.
Like
Yeah.
Fergana.
Yeah, and I think there's a story there. Like I spent a lot of time in the region. I think it's a really cool history.
Yeah.
So that's why the name is that.
That's
our,
cool.
Our product name is slightly easier to understand. It's called Stash,
Nice.
Stash.
which is like one word. Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much better for branding.
Yeah. Nice. And SEO.
And what's your bold vision for your company? Like, and I love what you said to me, but you can say more.
Yeah, I think the vision is really just like this idea of vibe working, right? And so in the way that Claude Code and Cursor have changed how engineers work, I think to a lot of my friends who don't live here and don't do engineering, don't quite realize the wave of change that's happening. And for better or for worse, it feels like it's inevitable. And so for us to help people like not have to do the boring, mundane tasks of their life.
Yes.
And whether that's PowerPoint and whether it's like, I have to do so much reading for like this briefing for my like boss, and I can't read all of it. I can't do a good job, right? AI can help with that.
Yeah. You said something about tabs and you said about ADHD people. I'm like,
Okay.
I'm like I have.
Gerta is basically just trying to have you build something that she needs.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Patient zero.
so that was actually the original vision behind the company when we
Oh, I
started.
see.
It's changed now because, I could say, PowerPoint wasn't something we chose. It chose us, right? When we talk to people, we're like, can you please do my PowerPoint for me?
Yeah.
But when we started the company, I think me and my co-founder, Henry, we don't have ADHD, but we have very similar tendencies, right? Like both of us have like 200,000 tabs open.
same.
Our like notes are a complete mess if you look at our Apple Notes.
Yeah.
There's lots of things where we're just completely disorganized with our like, some people inbox 0, I'm inbox 400,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, like this new technology, right? This is like, back in the day when we were talking about it, can really solve all of these problems, right? It can like organize your emails for you. It can make sure that like that random idea that you wrote down in your notebook doesn't get lost and like gone to the ether. That was the vision, right? And something I still believe in. But I guess as we built the company and explored and see what users really want, like I think starting with something that people use for work is easier like grip on like getting people to start using it. And some of these things that we talked about can be built along the way as byproducts of sort of the productivity tools that you use for like, your job or freelancing or whatever.
I love it. We can't wait. Do you have beta users yet?
We do. We just launched a couple weeks ago for beta.
Yeah, I would love to check it out. Being here in the heart of San Francisco, Silicon Valley, like all we hear is vibe coding, Claude Code, OpenClaw, all these things. And I mean, we have started looking into how to use these for our tools just because we feel like if we don't use this, we're going to fall behind. I don't know, because we're so steeped in that environment that like that's just what we constantly hear.
Yeah. Not only that, but we're such a small company. It's mostly us and occasionally like part-time people and we need more help so we can focus on our clients, and we need to figure out even as simple as video editing, which you're going to send me your contact after. Cool. I mean, I have so many questions. I was very curious about your PhD, but is it too sore of a topic?
Oh no, happy to chat about it.
Like I want to know what you learned. I would have loved a PhD in decision making. That feels like such an alpha, like over other people. It's like being a therapist.
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't make better choices. You're more aware of how bad your choices are. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you make better choices?
I mean, oftentimes, like as I mentioned, like here's a good example actually. I think poker is very big in the Bay, as you guys might know. And I think my friend, who's like a much better poker player than me, gave not Yeha, another one. The Yeha's getting up there.
Yeah.
He gave me this advice about poker. He's like, Sam, like I can tell you know what the right thing to do is, right? And like you could be a very good poker player if you just played what you think is right, but you don't do it. And I realized, it's because like, I'm like trying to have fun, right? I'm like, I get bored and undisciplined, or like, I'm like, it wouldn't be cool if I just knew what his cards are, right? And like, these are things that I'm feeling and thinking. Goes back to our point before. And so even though I know rationally, right, this is like the objectively right choice. Do I do it all the time?
Yeah.
No. And I think for all of us, when we make choices, that happens too often.
Yeah. I love that because for negotiations, I use this analogy with Ulysses, the Greek mythology, where like he knew so he's in a boat with his people and has to go somewhere, and then he passes by some sirens, and he should not listen to their music because it will steer the ship and kill them all. But then he wants to listen to the music. So what he does is he puts like earplugs on all his shipmen or whatever, and so he can hear it, but he's like, they will still steer the ship in the right direction. And so for us with negotiations is our clients, for example, they will make a negotiation move and a recruiter might not respond for like half a day or even a day or two. And they're freaking out, but they know that like no one's going to respond to you in a half a day because, you know, the recruiter needs to go get alignment, maybe with a compensation team, maybe with your hiring manager, maybe with the recruiter's hiring manager or a manager themselves, maybe with other leadership. It's a lot of stakeholders and everyone's in meetings or out of office. So realistically, it's going to take a while before they respond to your negotiation move. But people are not, and we've never had a client who was not freaking out at that stage when they make a
like
negotiation.
the girl who doesn't text you back.
Exactly. So it's so they start second guessing themselves. Like, oh, what if they take the offer away? Blah blah. And so we are the earplugs of Ulysses's men, and we're like, don't worry, this was the right move. Blah, blah. We're like, half of
There
our
to provide the support,
emotional
emotional support.
Yeah, we joke that half of our job is to be like kind of therapists. And so they know that, no one's going to respond to you right away, but they're very anxious. So very similar to what you said.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, okay.
Yes.
This reminded me of a thought that I think you asked about like relationships earlier. There's one of the things I learned, I think is a really useful thing that more people should know about from my PhD.
Let's go.
There's a very classic result in game theory. Do you know the prisoner's dilemma?
Yeah.
It's this idea that like, you know, if two prisoners are separated and both of them tell on each other, then they both get like, 25 years in prison. But then if one of them snitches, the other one doesn't, the one who snitches walks away free. Right?
Yeah. But if they both don't snitch, then I think
they both get like 1 year or something.
I thought that's the ideal outcome when they both don't snitch, or no?
Yeah, so it's ideal collectively, right? Because they only get like, let's say like 2 years total.
I see.
But in other cases, they get like 20 years plus.
I see.
It's just, but the problem is that if none of you are snitching,
right,
you should snitch because the other person.
Yes, the risk is
you don't know if the other person will snitch or not.
Yeah.
And so this is like a classic game theory result. And one really interesting thing is they play this result over and over again in tournaments. So they get some of the smartest people in the world, like computer scientists, to submit tournaments of like, hey, strategies.
Who does this? Like PhDs?
So I think some university research lab did this. The guy's name I think is Axelrod. If you ever watch Billions, it's named after this guy.
Yeah.
And so they have these tournaments where people play this game over and over again, or the robots do rather. And almost universally, there's one strategy that opens up every time. It's called tit for tat.
Yes.
And it's very simple. It's basically someone snitches on you, you remember that and always, do that the next time. Right? But if someone cooperates with you, you remember that too. And you cooperate with them
so
the
there's
next time.
positive tit for tat too.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So tit for tat, I know maybe sounds like it's a negative thing, but it literally means like, if you do something, I will match you.
Yes.
So if you trust me, I trust you. Right. And we keep trusting each other. And we cooperate.
Yeah.
If, you stab me in the back, well, then I have to retaliate.
Right.
Yeah.
So this ended up being like the most effective strategy. It's very simple. But here's the like really interesting thing about the strategy is that you can never win against your counterparty. There's no situation playing this strategy in which you will end up better than your counterparty.
Because you're just mirroring them.
You're mirroring.
Right.
You can't win.
So the best you can do is just be at parity with them.
Yeah. Or lose. But this is the winning strategy, like overall.
The winning strategy for both of you.
As like a group, right? Like this is the winning strategy. Like if you were to play this in these tournaments,
like
you should
tit
be
for
doing.
tat. Okay, so we should teach kids that.
But think about what that says about life. If things in life are like this game, right, in which a lot of things in life are, one of them being romantic relationships,
right?
And like
we're winning.
Well, you see so many people like I want to win the breakup, and I'm like, this is so stupid, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do you care about winning the breakup, right? And it's the idea that like the best thing for you to do, both for you and your partners, right, is to be willing to lose, right, and not care about winning.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is my take
I love that. But how did you go from tit for tat to being willing to lose? Oh, because when you're willing to lose, then
When you're
you're
playing tit for
matching.
tat, you can never win.
Yeah.
Right? You can never end up better than anyone else.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
profound.
I'm gonna be thinking about that one for
Don't think too hard about breakups.
in the context of professional negotiation.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that because I have so many thoughts. One is that Alex is one of the kindest people I know, probably the kindest. And I've always been so surprised how he brings out the best in everyone, even people who are really hard to like and get along with. And I wonder if it's because maybe naturally humans just do tit for tat, and he's so kind. Like they can't help themselves. They tit for tat him back, and they're nice to him back. And then the other reminds me of this study I learned about in maybe psychology in school. It was a long time ago, but similar to your study, it was something like, so let's say someone gives me $1, but I can only, I think, I have to share it with you, and we both get to keep whatever number we agree on. And so if I give you just like 5 cents, you are better off because you had 0 before, but you don't like that I kept 95 to myself.
Yeah.
And then you say no, and now we both lose, even though you would have been better off if you said yes to the 5 cents from 0, but you don't like that I wasn't fair and I didn't give you close to 50.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, no, I don't want the deal. And so now we both lose.
Yeah.
Have you heard this one?
Yeah. I think it's called Ultimatum Game.
Yes, that one. Yeah.
Basically, people feel insulted.
Yeah. And I found this so irrational because I have a degree in math, and I'm like, but you're better off. Like, why should I? I would have played it maybe 5.95. I don't know. But yeah, people are so irrational. I guess you learned this in your PhD.
Although the way I would rationalize that is if someone does that to me, that's a sign that that's not someone I want to work with.
Right.
Maybe in the one-off game, right? But
long term.
Long term, and we didn't evolve in like one-offs, right? We would evolve in tribes.
A tribe.
Where we see people over and over again.
Yeah. I hadn't heard the word tribe in a long time, but I come from such a community-oriented culture. We're trying to build a tribe here in SF.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Wow. Not quite. Do you have any final question?
Other studies?
Final question. I'm happy to answer.
How can people learn more about your company, and where can they find you?
And is it B2C or is?
Definitely B2C, because the honest answer is your directors are probably not caring. They're spending too much time on PowerPoint.
They should though, because that opens up your productivity for better stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, if you win your negotiation with the help of YouTube and just find yourself in a job that has too much PowerPoint, you can find us on stash.ac. So stash, like STASH dot AC, Alpha Charlie.
Okay.
And you can
and we'll include the link in the show notes as well.
You didn't want to get stash.ai.
When we raise our next round and we have some more money to buy the domain names.
But I think what you're building is so cool. And it made me think of my friend from business school. He worked in growth equity, and he's starting his own PE firm and private equity firm. And he was one of the people that made me realize, oh my gosh, we need to use this for our business, because he said that he started using Claude Code to create. So he was creating one report. It wasn't a PowerPoint deck, but it was more a report of certain charts from data that he had. But then they have like 400 customers or something. I didn't exactly know the context, and I don't think even if I did, I wouldn't share too much about it, but I genuinely don't know. But he basically said, I need to create 400 versions of this for 400 different companies. And he said, when I was working in PE and when I was an analyst just in the bullpen, I would have spent all night creating an individual one, duplicating and then creating the different chart that's relevant for that company. But he said he used Claude Code and he just assigned it, kind of planned it out exactly what he wanted, assigned it, and then he went to go get dinner. He came back in an hour, and all 400 were done.
That's incredible.
And that was one of those, he had that goosebump moment where, oh my gosh, companies and people everyone should be using something like this, and that's super cool that you are building a tool that will help people do that.
Yeah, it's such it hurts my soul when smart people are wasting their time on like formats and logistical things.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's wrap it up here. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, that was super fun
Yes.
conversation.
We will put, if you have any blurbs or anything you want us to put on the show notes, we'll do that.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks for coming.
Bye.